Bing bong!
So yesterday, Variety posted a really interesting article about the future of the MCU. This is something that I have found incredibly fascinating. So we're gonna go through the article. It's gonna be a slightly different type of video. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna edit this video at all, but we'll pull the article up on screen so you guys can see it as well. There are a lot of really interesting things that are on here. The first thing that they sort of went over was what Marvel's gonna do with Jonathan Majors, who I believe has a criminal trial starting this month or next month, really soon. Loki just wrapped up, or wrapped up in the sense of like season 2 is done and they're putting the episodes out. Um, According to somebody who has some knowledge of how the show ends, they basically said, like, I don't know how they're gonna get around not recasting Jonathan Majors. This just, regardless of how that trial ends, it does seem like there's just too much, like, controversy. And, Disney is a family brand. It's not gonna look very good when the domestic violence trial of Jonathan Majors starts for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to replace him before that happens. Although I don't know, maybe, then he's innocent and that opens him up to a lawsuit. I'm really not sure. He was going to be in a lot of movies, so he was probably signed to some sort of like 5-year deal, at least 5 years, based on when the other Avengers movies were going to start coming out. They're saying that they might replace Doctor Doom, or they might replace Kang with Doctor Doom, which I'm kind of down for. I thought it should have been Doctor Doom from the beginning. He's a really awesome villain. It kind of worries me that like it seems like before this all happened, Doctor Doom was probably going to be a one-off villain for the Fantastic Four, which it's just like this is like the Killmonger situation where they had a great villain and then they killed him off. I mean, they've done this with like so many villains in the MCU, but Killmonger specifically was like popular, like a pretty well-written villain. Killed him off in the first movie, and then just like that, you can't go back to the well. You can't use anything with Killmonger except for flashbacks and like ancestral plane stuff. Anyway, I'd be down for Doctor Doom becoming the new big bad. But you already built a whole Ant-Man movie around this Kang guy, and then a whole TV show. Season 2 of Loki, which I haven't watched because I'll be honest, I really don't care about the Marvel TV shows, which is another thing in here. But one of the other interesting points, there's something here about the Marvel's movie that comes out in like a week and a half. And the director, who's Nia DaCosta, who I did not know that. She's the one that did the Candyman movie from like a couple years ago, which was so good. I liked that movie a lot. But apparently she left before the movie was done. Like, I'm not quite sure I've ever heard of something like this happening. The movie had a lot of reshoots. It was then in post-production, and she moved back to London to work on a different movie, which is really weird. And there are people who are just like, we don't really understand what happened. Feige is not commenting on this story. Nia DaCosta is not commenting on it. It just says that it raised some eyebrows. Yeah, I don't know. This is super weird. There's some stuff in here also about the Blade movie, which there's stuff about the VFX teams like unionizing, so Marvel can't run them into the ground anymore, which they had been doing. The Marvel VFX CGI has looked really, really bad for a long time. Those people should be allowed to sleep and like see their kids and eat and be given food and water, which boy, it really seems like that's not what was happening. There's a lot going on with Marvel right now. there's stuff in here about the Blade movie being like having its budget slashed to like under $100 million. Something about one of the drafts was like barely even gonna feature Blade in the movie. He's gonna be like third string character in his own movie, which is, I cannot even understand how that could possibly happen. Super strange. Mahershala Ali's won 2 Academy Awards. He's like easily one of the most accomplished actors to be in a Marvel movie. And so the idea of like having him play second fiddle to anyone in a movie titled after the character he's playing, oh my god, that's just, I don't understand some of these decisions. And like I can't listen to the people that just like use the word woke for everything that they don't like. Because to me that's not what's frustrating about this. It's just like there's a distinct lack of direction with the MCU, and I felt it after the Thanos Infinity Saga or whatever it was called, where a lot of the Phase 4 movies that I was watching, I would talk to my friends and be like, was this building to anything? Because it doesn't really seem like they know what they want to do with any of this. And it turned out they didn't really have a direction at all. They did Shang-Chi, they did the Eternals, they did other stuff that I probably missed. Was Black Widow Phase 4? I don't know. That was weird. She was already dead. Why like give her a movie now? She's already dead for real. Like, yeah, which leads into another thing, which is something I had thought was really more of an inevitability than anything, which is the idea that, you know, Marvel had this huge like conference or meeting, you know, amongst a lot of their higher ranking executives, basically about what to do with the MCU. And someone floated the idea out there about bringing back the original Avengers, which is kind of an insane idea. But I could absolutely see this happening. It's just that it seemingly would force them to scrap whatever the future plans are with the rest of like the Secret War movies and all that and whatever. But like there's a distinct possibility. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they are looking at the next 5 years and saying like, we already had to deal with COVID. We already had to delay a bunch of stuff. We're, you know, cutting TV shows and, you know, trimming movie budgets down by hundreds of millions of dollars. What if we just start over? Which I think you could argue they should have done anyway after the Infinity Saga. But we had these weird movies that like were kind of Phase 3 but kind of Phase 4, like Spider-Man, whatever the one is, No Way Home, I think it's that one. Yeah, there were just like some weird decisions. And like, look, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't have to do any more movies, but you know what, there's a time when Hugh Jackman said he was done playing Wolverine, and when that check clears, all of a sudden you are very excited to play a character that you said you were never going to play ever again. So, you know, Disney has deep pockets. There is no number Robert Downey Jr. could say that they would say never mind. Same with Chris Evans. What's really kind of insane here is that they said like, it was like, well, 2 of these characters are dead, and, you know, Black Widow and Iron Man, and it sounds like they're just like, whatever, dead superheroes come back to life all the time. Like, we don't even need to explain it. Like, you kind of would need to explain it, but also maybe Marvel really has entered their like fuck it stage, where they're like, you know what, we're kind of fucked with Phase 4 and 5 anyway. The Blade movie, let's be real, it's never gonna happen. I think we could all admit, like, we've seen stories like this before, where a movie is like stuck in production hell forever, and because of the way Marvel, like, you know, sets everything up, I just see it getting to a point where they're like, fuck this, we're not gonna make the movie. Which is, man, what a fumble. Imagine getting Mahershala Ali and the project never getting off the ground. Although it does say in this article as well that they did hire the guy who wrote Logan to write Blade, which I'm like, okay, maybe we're back. Put the word out, but, you know, it sounds like Mahershala Ali's not that interesting, or he's not that interested in like staying on, which I don't blame him. It's been kind of a while. There's stuff on here about the TV shows. Look, the Marvel TV shows, I think they're for the hardcore fans. I'm a casual MCU guy. I watched a couple of the shows when they first launched. WandaVision. I saw the first season of Loki. Was that it? That might have been it. There's a chance that I didn't watch the others. I didn't see the Marvel one. I didn't see, or the young Miss Marvel. I don't know what her name is. I didn't watch the one where Nick Fury is like working with the Skrulls. I skipped a lot of them. I'm not watching season 2 of Loki. Oh, I saw Moon Knight. That was also pretty good, but probably should have been a movie. Again, Oscar Isaac. And it just like, you could just ignore that ever came out, which I think is like part of the problem, right? They're in this position where not that many people are watching the shows. So when the movies come out and they feature people who were in the shows, like the Marvels, if you didn't watch the show, you're going into this movie, or it's similar to like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which like if you didn't watch WandaVision, which it really seems like they assume a lot of people didn't in that movie, because they kind of just gloss over a lot of like why certain things are happening in that film. And the same thing's probably gonna happen with the Marvels, which is like, who's this like high schooler who's like has superpowers now? Why is she in the movie? You had to have seen the show, which like, do you want to sit through a full season of a show so that you understand why someone's in a movie that came out like 3 years later? I don't know. Yeah, I think that one of the things they mentioned too, which I guess is the thing that I'll end on, for a long time, there's sort of been, to me, a feeling of arrogance within Marvel that they were making all these movies and they were just easy billion. Didn't matter if the movie was good or bad. Easy billion. People loved watching Marvel movies. And even to the point where they coined the phrase the Marvel formula, right? All the movies sort of followed a very similar formula. And that works for a while. But eventually, people get bored, especially if you're a casual fan. You're probably just going to get bored of seeing the same thing over and over. And now Marvel's in a spot where there's a strong potential, I would say, that they have to just nuke the MCU as it stands now and start over. They could try to just push through and like recast Jonathan Majors, which if you want to keep Kang, like if you really want to keep everything, just recast the guy. At the end of Quantumania, they show like 8,000 different versions of this guy. He's dressed up as King Tut. Like, just cast somebody else. Like, just use makeup. It doesn't have to look like Jonathan Majors. Isn't that the whole point of Kang? Is he's got all these variants? They don't all have to look like him. I don't know. This is... It's just like they never prepared for a reality where it's like, what if people get bored of the same thing over and over for 10 years? And now people are kind of bored of that. And the multiverse can't fix everything, right? Just because it worked for Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse doesn't mean it's going to work for your movies. And if you're basing an entire future world of the MCU on the multiverse, people might just really not be that interested anymore, because character deaths don't really matter, especially if you're just going to bring Iron Man back anyway, which it sounds like they probably are. And their backs are kind of against the wall. I think that people really like those OG Avengers. I think you could take almost the first version of any character that was played in a movie and people are going to forever be attached to that cast, whether it's Christopher Reeve as Superman or Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Or, people just they get attached. They get attached to original castings. And if you're not gonna, create a new Iron Man, then you might as well fucking bring the OG guy back in, start the whole universe over, act like none of it ever happened, and I guess we'll see what happens to the MCU from here.